Hello.
Hi.
Welcome
Welcome back.
to the next episode of the BRIO in the Box Closet podcast.
Closet edition.
New name. Today we're going to talk about marriage.
Hot topic.
Specifically,
a lot of people doing it.
Our marriage.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we like each other.
We do. We will start out by saying we are not marriage counselors.
No.
This is not advice on what you should do.
No.
This is more of we've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
We're very happy. We like each other.
We're at a good place.
So what have we learned along the way?
In doing this podcast together, this is just super fun for us because I just love hanging out and chatting with you. It's all pretty much all we do with our time.
Yeah.
The benefit that we had not anticipated was sharing more of our dynamic with other people, with our community. Somebody observed when we started the podcast, they're like, I've never seen you two talk to each other, which blew my mind at the time. It's still clearly stuck with me because all we do is talk to each other.
Yeah.
But when we're in the gym together, usually you're there or I'm there. If we're ever there at the same time, one of us is doing a foundation. People never see us interact with each other.
We never co-coach a class or anything like
that.
It's
And
always...
so, I think that's great for people to see us interact with each other. We got a good thing going.
Yeah.
We frequently have people say nice things like, oh, you two are so cute together, or you clearly love each other.
Yeah. It's because we share a chair when we do the podcast.
Does this mean we don't love each other? We're in two separate
drifting
chairs
apart
right now?
We're currently drifting.
So and I think like people will ask frequently, like, what's it like to work with your spouse?
Yeah.
And people expect you to say something negative. But it's actually great.
Yeah, it's great.
And I would say congratulations to our generation, the millennials, for killing the old ball and chain style of humor, right?
Yeah.
There was always that joke of like your spouse is the worst and they're dragging you down.
Yeah, it was a really bad time. You know, it's a weird type of humor where you basically just throw your spouse under the bus at every chance you get. And there was, like it used to be a lot more of the man was the man and he had his man friends, and then the woman was the woman and she had her woman friends, and they would always be separate. And, it was a weird family dynamic back in the olden days with the ball and chain. And I'm glad that we've kind of like evolved as a society that now it's like, you can enjoy your marriage and you can like love your wife, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
we've been together for 15 years, married for 13 and a half.
Yeah.
No, this is not to make anyone else's relationship more like ours. It's just sort of sharing some accumulated wisdom of how we got to a pretty good point where we spend basically all of our time together.
Yeah. And
work together, live together, raise our kids together.
Yeah.
And we make that all happen pretty functionally, I would say.
And what's funny is that a lot of this stuff, it's not that we invented this stuff. This is stuff that we've learned from other people along the way, but it's stuff that we live, it's stuff that we actually put into place, because there's all kinds of great self-help books out there and stuff. And it doesn't matter if you read it and don't, incorporate it into your life. So these are the things that we actually try to really like do in our life.
One of the first major pieces of advice when we got married.
This was like for our wedding.
For our wedding. Yeah. Family, friends, an older couple that have been together for a very long time gave us this piece of advice. Marriage is never 50-50. It's always 60-40. It just changes who's the 60 and who's the 40. And I love that so much. I write it on every wedding card of every wedding I go to because I think it's such an important place to keep your mindset grounded.
Yeah.
Things are never, fair is not the same as equal.
No.
Right? You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to trade back and forth. Who's the 60 and who's the 40.
Yeah. And the important things are that, if you feel like you've been the 60 for a long time and you need to be the 40 for a while, that you guys communicate that and you're just like aware that both people get to have needs and get to lean on the other person when they need support. And it's just never going to be fair as fair as fair.
Yeah. And sometimes those things are thrust upon you, right? You might have illnesses or deaths in the family or, tragedies that are out of your control. Other times it might just be like, currently I'm taking a couple years to get a master's degree. And so I'm being the demanding 60 right now. And you're having to step up and take some things, but it's like a temporary thing where it's kind of my turn for a bit. And then, we kind of will go back and forth, and there's always this dynamic.
You had a second baby as per my request,
Yeah,
which was a big ask.
Yeah, I met your needs and the number of people that you wanted to parent.
Couldn't do that one on my own.
That had to be a group decision.
Yeah.
Another one that I always thought was really interesting that I read somewhere was people that get divorced, the number one issue that they'll cite is communication. But people that stay together for a long time will cite the number one factor as respect.
Yeah.
And so I always thought, that's so interesting that we tend to look at the marriages that fall apart and learn from that. But it's like, but shouldn't we learn from the ones that are going well? What are the ones that are going well doing? So I think about that all the time. And it really, if you work from a position of just respecting your spouse, it's going to change everything about how you communicate with them, because I respect you. I tell you my thoughts and feelings or where I'm going or what, whatever. It's like,
and those things are very intertwined, communication and respect. Like when I was dating before I ever met you, I remember having one long-term girlfriend and we would just yell at each other. I remember like it'd be the middle of the night, we'd be fighting about something stupid and I kept having to be like, shh, my neighbors are going to wake up, like, shh, stop yelling. But it was just like full of emotion and full of like whatever. And I think it's super common for people to yell at themselves. And an interesting point that I remember reading a long time ago was anybody that has siblings, they generally yell at each other. That's a pretty common thing. And often when you move out of your home, you don't have that like means of, getting your emotion out. You don't have a brother or a sister to yell at anymore. And so you often end up yelling at your girlfriend or your spouse or whatever.
Interesting.
And it kind of like alleviates that need to like release those emotions. And I remember you were the first person where it was super early on in our relationship and I was mad at you for something. And I started yelling at you and you're like, whoa. Why are you yelling?
I was like,
what are you doing? 'Cause I'm mad. You're like, but you don't need to yell. You can just tell me why you're mad. And I was like, what?
I was like,
what do you mean?
You are not yelling at me. This is not happening.
And I remember just being taken aback. And it's that like respectful communication, like you can talk to each other without the emotion taking over, right? And we had to work on it. Like I had to learn to communicate without getting mad and angry, and you had to learn to communicate without like crying and it's
still
like,
not good at that.
It's just like when the emotion is taking over, right? And being able to communicate in a way where it's just clear and it's appropriate, and you can actually say the things you're trying to say and hear the things that you need to hear.
So I'm an only child, right? So I didn't grow up fighting with siblings. My family dynamic was always very chill, not a family that yells. And so it's interesting when you come together as adults and you bring your background, your upbringing into the relationship where you came from a household where
lots of
yelling at your siblings and with your mom and all that kind of stuff. And then and I remember not even being upset about it. I fully remember we were standing in our kitchen in our condo in Calgary and you were yelling at me and I was like, no, this is not happening. You're not yelling at me. And you were like, no,
people can do that.
No yelling. All right. No yelling.
Yeah.
And so, just shut that down immediately. So yes, a foundation of respect, I think is super important. And then especially, but I was gonna say even when you're fighting, but especially when you're fighting, you don't fight dirty.
Yeah.
Swearing at each other, name calling, insulting, because
bringing up stuff from the past, like just like the unnecessary stuff.
Fight clean.
Yeah. Fight clean. Talk about what the actual problem is. And
another thing I read was marriages work well when both people feel like they married up. And I definitely feel like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so then I think it works. You work from a position of like, and I can't think of a positive word for this because I'm going to say like, it's your duty or your obligation to rise to the level of your spouse, to be good enough for them.
Yeah.
So that you always feel like you're working. I always feel like super grateful to be with you and lucky. And because I like you so much, I want you to have a good life. I want you to have the best wife. I want you to be happy, so then it's like on the bigger picture, my job to do those things for you, but then like the little day-to-day things too, to like meet you where you're at, what's important to you, to like do my part for you to like have a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those little things. And I think a lot of times people will get complacent because they're just comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with being comfortable with somebody, right? You'll get to those places where you can just like lounge in your pajamas together and it's totally like, it's not like you have to dress yourself up all the time. But when you do have those, like when we go out somewhere or whatever, and I get dressed up nice, I don't go into it with the thought like, I'm dressing up to impress other people. It's like I'm dressing nicely and getting myself presentable so that I look good with you, and we get to go out together and like have a fun time. It's not about what everybody else is thinking. It's about impressing the most important person, which is you. So what are those little things I can do to, make your life better? When you're super into a book or a topic, I'll try to like learn about it as well so that we can talk about it. And we've often shared a lot of, the same interests. So it's been easy for us.
All of them, basically.
But, even when you are talking about your like high level nutrition stuff, I try to pay attention and remember like a fraction of it so that I can, when you say it again, I can be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
David puts up with a lot of talking.
We talk about a lot of nutrition lately.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like I do find it interesting. And, I like that you're passionate about it, and it's just good to be that like support structure in that,
I don't know if you realize it, but basically you like help me study all the time. When I'm like verbalizing, that's me like sort of regurgitating, like, do I understand this topic well enough to explain it to someone else? So thanks for helping me study all the time and listening to a lot.
She'll be like, it's super interesting in this function of the body, because, and then she'll just like start spouting information, and it's just like in one ear, out the other ear, and I'm just like, okay, I know that word. Yeah, know that word. Okay. Yeah. But then I hear it enough times that I start to remember.
Yeah. You're also getting a master's degree in nutrition right now. You should get the honorary degree. Okay. So I think there's something to be said for trust in a relationship. Obviously people, you go, what's the most important aspect of a relationship? Trust is going to be right up there with something that people say. And there's the sort of like, I trust you not to cheat on me. Like, sure, to maintain your loyalty and monogamy in a relationship. But I think, to me, it's deeper than that. And the quality in you that first made me like want to marry you above anybody else that I had dated was you were the first person in my life that told me when I was being an asshole. So in addition to where I had boundaries and expectations for how I was going to be treated, that you weren't going to yell at me, you also had good boundaries and high expectations for the way you wanted to be treated. And that comes from a root of self-confidence.
Yeah.
And when you had self-confidence, that made me respect the hell out of you.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And it came from a place of, you have a good self-confidence. It made me trust you, which is, I hope I can make this point make sense. In that I knew in that moment, and maybe I didn't know consciously, but I've sort of since figured it out, is that I could trust you to always tell me the truth and to just be fairly direct with me, but that it would always come from a place of like love. And if you're telling me that I'm being an asshole for whatever reason, that you're telling me that to give me the opportunity to improve.
Yeah.
And because you know that I can do better. And I remember being like, oh, this is what I need in my life. Like, I'm going to be a better person by being with you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to give me the opportunity through straightforward communication to just be better. So then I knew I wouldn't have to struggle with like unclear communication or weird games or passive aggressive shit. I just hate all that. It's like, you would just tell me. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. And I think that like real self-confidence, and we could probably do a whole podcast, and we probably will do a whole podcast on self-confidence, but confidence, like part of that is being able to like acknowledge that you need to improve in some ways, right? Like you're never just done. You're never just fully formed as a perfect human and you're good to go. Like even if you're confident in who you are now, it should always be a bit of like, okay, well, what else can I do to make things better? And there's always ways for both of us to be improving. And it goes back to the, we're marrying up and we're trying to make ourselves the best person we can be, and, earn each other's love and just always be better,
I would say continuous improvement is like one of the core values that we have together in our relationship. And then it manifests in the way we live our lives.
Yeah.
We're always trying to improve things at the gym. We're always trying to be better as parents. We're always trying to improve ourselves. We're always trying to improve our relationship. So it's like this just stacking good things on top of each other.
Yeah.
And that I would say one of my biggest pet peeves is the you're perfect just the way you are attitude. I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
Because you know who's perfect just the way they are? Nobody.
Yeah.
Absolutely nobody. And what a terrible thing to tell yourself or someone else that to completely remove the expectation that you're supposed to be trying to be better.
Yeah. And there is a large gap between, wanting to improve and being insecure. Like you can be happy with who you are, but like always striving to do better. And anybody that has been in our gym knows, like, we're always trying to improve the gym. We're always renovating stuff. We're always moving stuff around. To the point that's like a joke now. We're always doing seminars. We're always like challenging ourselves in new ways to learn new things and like, you know, improve the process. And we instill that in our kids, right? Our kids will do something cool and be like, that's awesome. Like, imagine how good you'll be able to do that if you keep working on that 4 months from now, or like with Atlas with gymnastics or whatever. So yeah, you know, enjoy the process of improving yourself as a person.
I believe growth mindset, growth
sure.
versus fixed mindset. A lot of people would be familiar with that concept from that book. And I can't remember the name of it right now. There was a book I read early on when we were first married, and it was basically about why people just can't admit when they're wrong, and why that's like I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Why that's such a difficult thing for humans to do is just admit when you're wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think you and I are pretty good in both directions about just like kind of laying the swords down. And because I trust you so much and because I respect you so much, if you tell me that I am wrong about something, I hope for the most part that I'm willing to hear it and admit it.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes some time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The other day we were driving and I'm pretty, you know, not aggressive, but I will pass people on the left pretty like freely. And, there was one that was, I'm not going to say a close call, but it was definitely like I got honked at. It was enough of a like, you're being a dick that I got honked at by the other driver. And Jocelyn was very quick to be like, you cannot do that anymore. Like, you're scaring the shit out of me. And at first I was like, that wasn't that bad. And then, you know, a little while later I was like, okay, that was pretty bad. Like everybody agreed that was a bad.
So we're on a 2-lane highway. Here's my version of that story. We're on a 2-lane highway. I don't know why, one of my like major anxiety inducing things is the thought of a head-on collision on the highway. And just suck. Like your life being over in that flash of an instant. So I really hate passing. David is driving. He passes the car coming at us. It was way too close. David's going really fast. The car coming at us lays on the horn. The car that we're passing lays on the horn. I'm like having a panic attack, about to barf in the passenger seat. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, please do not do that. David's like, it's fine. And I was like, listen, we all voted. We all agree that was not fine. That was not a cool move. That car agrees. That car agrees. I agree. And then he was like, fine.
Yeah. So immediately, you know, at the time I was like, it's fine. We didn't die. It's fine. But then afterwards I was like, okay, fine. that was probably closer than comfortable. And,
yeah.
You know,
with all of your loved ones in the car, me and the kids and everything. Yeah.
So. I think it was just our paddle boards in the truck. So it just would have been us and our paddle boards
just
that would have died.
Orphaning our children then, whatever.
No big deal. So you're not perfect. Work on improving.
Yeah. We're always trying to continuously improve. And then having a base of good self-confidence, and who knows where that comes from, but there's ways to build that. Having standards and boundaries for how you are willing to, you know, be treated, and holding those boundaries, I think is super important to maintain your self-respect in a relationship. I think if you start to sacrifice your needs and boundaries for the other person, I think you start to lose self-respect. And that's like a really mentally distressing position to be in. And
there needs to be give and take in both directions, right? It's not that like you need to do everything in your power to make your spouse happy and give up everything you hold valuable. It's like, no, there needs to be that your spouse needs to take care of your needs, and you need to take care of your spouse's needs. And you just, you know, sometimes you do the stuff that you want, and sometimes we do the stuff that I want, and we just try to like meet in the middle as much as we can. Yeah. So we got married pretty quick. Yeah. I was 23 when we met. You were 28. We got married slightly less than 2 years after we met. We got engaged like very fast.
Less than a year, 10 months after we met.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know. So I was 25 when we got married. You were 30. And we had Atlas pretty quick in there. Yeah. Like not quite a year and a half later. So I was 26 when I had Atlas. We went like pretty quick into like married kids, bam, bam, bam. So we did a lot of like working through our relationship stuff after we were married. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we were like, listen, we're committed to this, and we locked it down, put a ring on it, but then did a lot of the work from inside already being married, inside the marriage. So in working through those things, another thing I read somewhere that I wish I could remember where is that when you come to an obstacle or you're fighting with your spouse, it's not you versus your spouse, it's both of you versus the problem. Right. That we're on the same side, that together we're working through this problem. And so that the fights are never antagonistic, they're cooperative. Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely like, it's been There's been plenty of ups and downs. We had to work through a lot of stuff that I think people often do before they get married.
Yeah.
And we've discussed in the past, like, I wonder if we hadn't have gotten married so quickly, would we still have the motivation to work through those things, or would one of those things have like broken us up if we were just dating or whatever? It's an interesting like thought process, but we were married, we were super committed, we had a kid, and it was like, no matter what, we've always been like, we're gonna work through these problems and we're gonna figure it out. So we've tried to learn that instead of it being like my opinion versus your opinion, it's like, okay, here's the problem, like, what are we gonna do to solve that problem?
And I think it's something we try to model now for our kids. Like, one of the things we do is we will fight in front of our kids.
Yeah.
And I know some people don't. They prefer to keep their marriage issues separate and hidden from the kids and behind closed doors. I remember distinctly, not that long ago, maybe in the last year or two, we were like, not fighting, because we never really fight anymore, but we were discussing something in the kitchen, and Atlas goes, "Stop fighting." And I turned to him, I remember being like, actually, no. I was like, I want you to see what's going to happen here. I want you to see that Dad and I are going to work through, I don't even remember what it was. Doesn't matter now. I want you to see that Dad and I are going to work through this issue, and I want you to see how we're going to do it. We're going to do it respectfully. You're going to see that we're not yelling or insulting or swearing at each other. You're going to see that we're going to communicate respectfully, and that we're going to arrive at a conclusion or a solution to this problem together. And he was like, whatever, 10 years old. Like, can I just go play video games? Yeah. But I remember being like, he was like, "Stop fighting." And I remember being like, no, we're not gonna, we're not fighting. Yeah.
And that's just it. We're not yelling at each other. We're just like, we discuss our problems and we try to like stay calm and we stay rational. And, if the kids hear that we're having problems, that's fine, because they're going to see us solve it, and they're going to see us how we like apologize afterwards and hug it out and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny now, Atlas is starting to like, have sleepovers at different houses and spend more time with other people's families. And just recently he was like, some people's families are a lot meaner to each other than ours is. I was like, a lot more people like yell, and the fighting is actual fighting, and it's interesting to see it through his eyes.
Yeah. I think so we have two boys, right? So their future relationships with the women in their lives, I view the way we model our relationship as the expectations that they should have for how they're treated in their future romantic relationships. And I've said to Atlas, and he always like rolls his eyes at this, but I was like, "Atlas, I hope someday you find a wife that loves you and adores you as much as I love and adore your dad." And he'll be like, "Mom," but like, or husband, I'm fine with that too. It doesn't, whatever. But just that, like, they should come to see that that's what a functional relationship is like. That's the level of respect and care and love that they should expect in their future relationships.
For sure.
So yes, in continuing to grow together.
Yeah.
You read something.
I did. I tried to find it so I could read it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I believe it was on Reddit. And it was one of those questions where it's like, people that have been married together for so long, like, what's the secret, or how do you, whatever.
It was like, how do you stay married to the same woman for so long?
For so long. And somebody wrote, it was a really well-written thing. And he basically said, I've been married for 40 years, and I haven't been married to the same woman. He's like, when we first started dating, we were teenagers, and we were into like all these things, and we would do these things together, and it was all like love and, lust and passion and whatever. And then we went to school together, and she became a student, and she had to really like hunker down and like focus on that. And then we actually got married, and we were in our, whatever phase, our honeymoon phase. And then we started having kids, and then I loved her as a mother and like whatever. And it was like him talking about all the different types of woman that she's been. And I thought that was super beautiful, because nobody stays the same for that long. You're going to grow as a person, and you're going to change. The things that you're into when you're 18 are going to be different than when you're 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever. And I think like the biggest thing that I got from that is that you need to be ready for change, and you need to be willing to love that person, both for who they were and who they become.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find a way to grow together and embrace the change,
And it's definitely like a different mindset than like, this is boring, I'm married to the same person my whole life. It's like, no, you're like, that's such a key thing, is like, no, I'm not married to the same person for 10 or 20 or 50 years. Like, I've been married to a dozen different people.
Yeah.
And then that it is new and interesting and exciting and fresh.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't have to be churning through a revolving door of new relationships, that within your same relationship, there's a revolving door of new and interesting experiences and growth and stuff happening.
We've been married for 13 years and you've had like 13 different haircuts. So, I mean, there's always changes that are happening. And it's funny because we see that in everything too, right? We know that like in parenting, year to year, our kids are going to be different. And in our gym, every year is something different, right? Yeah. And if you get too stuck in like, well, this is the way it is, then you're going to lose.
Resist change.
You have to be willing to like go with the flow and understand that like it's great to look back, you know, with happy thoughts of times that were, but you need to find those happy thoughts like within your current situation and be ready for more in the future.
Yeah. Excited to look forward to the future.
Yeah.
One thing we're good at, I think, is spending a lot of time together.
And we're super... Yeah.
we spend a lot of time together.
We spend a lot of time together, both doing this type of stuff, working, you know, all the, like I said before, like we've had a lot of shared interest, a lot of shared interests. But the big thing is like date nights have always been a big thing for us. And we are super fortunate to have your parents help us out as much as they do. We are lucky way more than most people.
Yeah.
But even for those people that don't have that much help, you need to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, to spend time together, especially once you have kids.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy to let your roles in your family dynamic fall into just parenting your kids and you forget to put time into like your romantic relationship. So continuing to always date each other.
Yeah.
If you don't have, you know, convenient grandparents like we're super lucky to have nearby, find another family that you're close with and make arrangements to like trade sleepovers once a month. You take their kids, they take your kids.
Yeah.
You just have to find a way. And like, it takes a village to raise kids. You're not supposed to just be responsible for your own kids all the time. Aunts and uncles and grandparents and friends. And, you know, you're just supposed to like do that for other people and then have that reciprocity that people can help you out, to accept help from people. You know, when people offer to take your kids or have a sleepover, like take them up on it.
Yeah.
Make sure you preserve and nurture your romantic relationship.
Yeah.
I remember back to like when I was growing up, it was that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Mars and Venus stuff. And that early on in a relationship, the guy will be like wooing the girl, dating and maybe like flowers and this sort of like romancing her kind of stuff. And then when you get married, in the guy's perspective, he's now sharing his life with her, which is a much bigger deal and a much more important elevated level of a relationship. But then the woman will go like, you never bring me flowers anymore. We never like go on a date anymore. And she'll feel like neglected. And there'll be this clash of communication or of needs, because he's like, well, yeah, I don't, that's like going back a step to him. He's like, yeah, I don't treat you like a woman I'm dating. We're married. I'm sharing my life with you. Where he's feeling like he's elevated the relationship and she's feeling neglected. So I think there's to always keep that in mind, that maybe one, and not that it has to be the male and the female in those roles exactly, but that to always preserve that, continue to date and romanticize and woo each other. Yeah. Continue to win each other over every time.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, best option is if you can have like what we do, where we have tons of help and, you know, we get a date night all the time. Like you said, pair up with another family and like alternate, like they take them for a sleepover 1 week or 1 month or whatever, and then you guys switch places and help each other out. But even if you can't set up that sort of situation, you know, it's worth once in a while, like you put the kids to bed early and you guys just stay up and hang out, right? Even if you can have, and don't like try to avoid just like being on your phones next to each other or whatever, like actually talk to each other, like drink some wine together, like do whatever you need to do to just like bond and like talk and like just, you know, whatever. And part of that is like being intimate with each other, right? Like it's not we're not going to get fully into the sex topic because I'm sure it would be uncomfortable for a lot of people to hear about our sex lives. But I think it's an important part of any relationship. And all of these sort of like rules or theories or whatever apply to your sex life as well, you know. Communicate, take care of each other's needs, like be open and honest with each other and show each other the respect and like, you know, understanding that you both need to make it worthwhile on both people's side.
Yeah, I think the sexual aspect of your relationship is no different than any of the other parts.
No.
Communicate, speak openly, be honest with your spouse. And then people are going to get to different dynamics that work in their relationship, right? It's like everybody needs to come to the homeostasis that works for them.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's not about making anyone's relationship like ours.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important aspect of any relationship.
There was a comedian who had a bit, something about his, I don't know if it was about his wife or not.
His girlfriend.
His girlfriend, where she didn't want to have sex really anymore. And he was like, okay, let's say I can only get eggs from one store. And every time I go to that store is closed. But I'm not allowed to go to any other store to get those eggs. I need eggs. What am I supposed to do about that situation?
That was a funny one.
It was.
I can't remember that guy's name either. My memory is failing me right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about continuous improvement, always working on yourself. One thing, and like spending time together and talking to each other.
Yeah.
Continuously being curious and learning and investigate things with your brain.
Yep.
You and I are both pretty good at like reading, listening to podcasts. So then we have things to talk about. Yeah. You're an interesting person and I like to talk to you about things, and you'll be like, oh, I read this article today, or, oh, I just, watched this YouTube video, or like, we're able to have interesting discussions because we're both always like exploring and learning things.
Yeah.
And so then it's not like we sit down and we're like, so
what'd you do?
Keeping up with the Kardashians, okay?
Yeah.
So, continuing to be an interesting person.
Yeah.
Have things to talk about.
Yep.
And then obviously the health and fitness stuff is important. I think that taking care of yourself, like the old line, like make your own bed first, is super important. Like if you eat well, right down to the most basic physiological level, if you have stable blood sugar, you're less likely to fight with your spouse. Yeah. I've talked about this before. There's a study, because I just think it's hilarious, where they tracked blood glucose in couples, and then they tracked when they were fighting. And they would fight when their blood sugar was wild and going out of control, because then your emotional regulation gets all dysregulated. So if you eat well, you're an easier person to get along with. You're less likely to fight. If you manage your stress by exercising and having that functional outlet for your stress, you're less likely to come home and like scream at your spouse. Yeah. Like
if you look better and feel better in your body, you're more likely to like appreciate each other and be like more intimate, and
self-confidence.
Your sex hormones will be better regulated. Like, and then probably the biggest thing is like, if you're in this for the long term, it's like you are fighting off debilitating like diseases, I guess we'll call them, like in your later years. And it's like, who's going to be taking care of you? It's your spouse that's most likely to be taking care of you. So if you're, you have Alzheimer's and diabetes and all these things from not taking care of yourself your whole life, like it's on your spouse to take care of you most likely. So it's like it works in the now because everything will be better in the now, but then it's also like a long-term investment.
Yeah. So your like emotional regulation, your moods and your stress level. If you eat properly nutritious foods, you need saturated fat and cholesterol. That's the basis of your sex hormone, so that then your mood and your sex drive is normal, not suppressed. I think there's nothing wrong with staying physically attracted to your spouse is important. There's precisely 2 people in the world that I care about their opinion on what I look like, and it's you and it's me, right? So feeling good in your own body makes you more confident and more willing to participate in your sexual interactions. And then there's absolutely nothing wrong with being like hella attracted to your spouse all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that we love is the concept of the love languages.
Yeah. And this is something that we definitely had to learn.
Yeah. And I think it's so insightful for not just your romantic relationships, but your interactions with all kinds of people.
Yeah.
So it was Dr. Gary Chapman came up with this thing. The book is called The 5 Love Languages. If you just Google that, there's a quiz you can take online. Asks you about all these different kinds of things that are important to you and how you like to spend your time and how you like to show love for other people.
Yeah.
And so then there's 5 love languages.
So there's words of affirmation, which was very much a you thing. There's acts of service, which is very much a me thing.
Yeah.
And then there's gifts, quality time, and then physical touch is the 5th one. So it's not that you have just one thing. You can have like a little bit of this and a lot of that or whatever. But I think there's something about learning about what those love languages are, so that you can see when your spouse is showing you love, right, in a way that you might not perceive as love, but then also being able to like give that person what they're hoping to get, because whatever like you like to do is probably what you like to get. So for me, I'm an acts of service person. You know, I like taking care of the house and like doing nice things for you. I'll bring you coffee, I'll do whatever. And it's like, those are the things that I value and I show it and I use as a way of showing my love. And I appreciate when you do them for me. Whereas you are more of a words of affirmation person. So
I love telling everybody how much I love them all the time, which I do to you like nonstop all day. I tell you things. But then if I'm always like just telling you, oh my God, I love you, I adore you, like all these nice things, I appreciate blah, blah, blah. But you're like, girl, I just want you to hang up your coat when you come in, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. Or if I'm like, you never tell me I'm pretty, but you're like, but I brought you your coffee to the gym. Like, you know, so that you don't, like you said, you don't miss where people are really putting effort into the relationship to show their love, but they're just doing it in a different language than what's important to you. So as much as I like to tell you how much I love you all the time, I have to remember that the way that I show that that's meaningful to you is by doing the things that are important to you. Acts of service that you appreciate, that, you know, on your terms that help you have a better day. And then you have to go outside your comfort zone to say nice things to me more often.
And for me, it's like, that's probably one of my lowest one is the words thing. I'm just not a very verbal person when it comes to that kind of stuff. I didn't grow up in that sort of household. It was just like, that's how I've always been. So for me, it was like, I have to like consciously make an effort to be like, okay, I need to say nice things. I need to say nice things. I need to say nice things. And you know, it's just like anything. The more you do it, the more natural and easy it starts to come. And it's funny because like, I'll think those things. You'll like, we'll be going for dinner. You'll look great. And in my head, I'll be like, oh damn, Jocelyn looks great. But I just don't say it because I don't even think about it. And so now it's like, in my brain, I'll be like, God damn, Jocelyn looks good. And I'll be like, bing. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to say that.
Let that out.
And I'll like, say the words. She can't read your mind.
And then we certainly recognize that stuff in other people now. So like Dash is a gifts guy. Oh my God. That guy loves making presents and cards and crafts. And we'll be going somewhere or someone will be like leaving our house and he'll be like, I have to get them a gift. And he'll just like go grab like random items out of the basement because he just like so badly needs to give someone something important. And then in your professional relationships, right, you might have an employee or a boss or in either direction where maybe they never say that you're doing a great job, but they like give, you know, gifts or recognition, or they arrange.
They physically touch you.
Not at work, not that one, but like a high five. That's all you get. Maybe they quality time, right? So quality time can be a big one. They take you
out for lunch or they whatever.
Yeah, or they, you know, arrange fun things like that. So I think if you understand other people's love languages, it helps you understand when they're putting effort into whatever the relationship is, and it helps you show your love and appreciation for that dynamic on their terms. Yeah,
it's just like with everything, it's compromise, right? Like you appreciate somebody when they're showing you your love language, and then you put the effort in to show them their love language.
Yeah. I think it's great. Definitely worth taking the quiz for everybody.
Yeah, there's a whole book. You don't.
I don't think you have to read the book. Just take the quiz and then you'll get the gist of it.
That's one of those books where it's like, it could just be an
article,
essay or something. Yeah, a very quick essay. But the test itself is interesting.
Yeah. And I think there's ones you can do with a kid too.
Yeah.
So your parent-child relationships can help there too.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else you want to add about
not that I can think
married?
of. I'm sure there's lots more stuff we could get into, but I think that's a good list. That's a good start.
Do you know what I would appreciate? So like on YouTube, in the comments below, if you have something in your relationship that's like your treasured thing or your value or your like gem or something important that someone told you that's stuck in your head, like share it below. This doesn't have to be just about you and me and our accumulated wisdom. I would love to hear. There's lots of really great, stable, long-term relationships within the BRIO community. And I would love to hear more of how people got to that good place.
Because we're always seeking ways to improve. Like it's not that this is the end of the list. It's like, we're always looking for new ideas and new thoughts on all of this.
And every single thing that we wrote down and accumulated came from other people. Right. So we learned from other people along the way.
Yep.
And many more years to come.
That's right.
15 years in, 75 more to go.
Maybe when we're 70 years old and we're on episode like number 5,000, that's when we'll cover sex on that one. We'll really dive in deep. Be like, damn it, Grandma. You got to stop podcasting drunk.
Okay. Well, it's been a slice. Love being married to you.
Love you.
Okay. See you in the next one.